Disclaimer, I am not a pro at Decaying Winter, but I am just helping people, which is, tips and a guide. If you're gonna out say I'm trash, you suck, probably, and you have no friends at school, and you stink. Go take a shower. Oh boy, the Bug Man. The opposite of the Exterminator. Who even legit let this guy in? You're either going to be dying a whole lot, or you're going to be a fair asset to your team, and I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you're the first one. But that's okay, I understand. I got you covered. Just make sure you pull out a notebook, because it's going to be very extensive. Alright, starting with the benefits. First off, we have faster shoves. This is quite clearly evident as soon as you press the Q button with your ballistic dagger or your fists. It is way more faster than any other perk that doesn't have this, and it's very nice to get an easy hit off without doing any special shove lag. Secondly, you're completely immune to bleed. All the shoves that you run into, the enemies are going to inflict bleed, or the barbed wire equipment that someone throws, you don't at least need to worry about the debuff that it implies. But you're still taking the damage that it throws out, so don't think you're off the hook with that. Also, wait, why are you running at the traps and the barbed wire? Stop doing that. Finally, Hive Aura. This is very obscure, and I understand that you don't know what this even means, but don't worry, I got you covered. Basically, any enemy that is in a close proximity of you will get the sickness debuff, just like what the Pungies do. Cool, right? Get a free hit off. Now we have the cons, and if you're coming off the survivalist for the first time ever, this will probably be new to you. First on the list, you start with reduced max health, a whopping minus 15 HP, which is now 85 for a base hive. Next is reduced defense, which means you take more ouchies, and you also have reduced stamina of minus 30, with your base now being 70. You can kind of see where you're dying a lot now is with the first two cons. And that's actually a lot of Hivemind's problems as well. They're just dying very quickly because of that. As this perk is not a frontline melee perk, or really a frontline melee, just in melee in general, but you can still help out your team out very well. But we're not even done yet, because we got an active ability, and oh man, I am feeling overloaded. What about you? Okay, so basically the rundown of the ability is you press F, you raise your little arm, you get this little gadget, you press the right mouse button, you go boop boop boop, and you see disperse to fight direct. Each one doing more damage than the last one, but they also do a different function. Disperse will do an large AoE square, doing the least amount of damage, but covering the most amount of ground out of all of them. Divine will create a wall-like structure, doing more damage than Disperse, but covering about maybe a third of what Disperse does. And finally, Direct, which is basically a one-lock target onto the nearest enemy, dealing the most damage, but okay, obviously it's just a one-lock target. What do you want me to say, that it's no range? I mean, it has range, you just have to be in some close proximity of the target. It's just one target, but it does follow you around if there is no target around, which is pretty good. All of them can be used in a different situation, it's just how you want to use them. But I am here, I will explain how I use them and all that stuff. There's a lot to take in, right? I bet it was. We still got to keep going with picking out traits and our equipment. But first, traits. Basically, we're going to run Tormented and Dependable. These are probably the most essential with a Hivemind, just so you can negate basically one of the cons and somewhat the other one. Tormented gives us 15 more HP, which basically negates the reduced max health. And Dependable gives us 50% less damage, which is nice, but you're still taking there's still a little bit more reduced damage in there, so you're still taking more ouchies, so just be careful. Now for your final trait, you probably want to pick up either Impatient or Methodical, depending if you want to be faster or you want to deal more damage. Personally for me, I do Methodical so I can do more damage while they're puking up all over the floor. Now for your equipment, this is up to you basically, just do not pick the goddamn ladders. I personally use the ballistic daggers, which is, gives you 12 extra damage for your shove, which again, is nice overall. But if if the reduced damage is kind of scaring, the reduced defense is like scaring you a lot, use the hollow emitter. This will at least avoid one hit from the enemy trying to hit you, and you have 2 of them, so you technically avoid 2 hits total. So if you really want to play that playstyle, you totally can. It's really up to you. Just don't use the ladder. Ladder sucks. Oh boy, that was a lot, wasn't it? Don't worry, basic stuff's over. Now I can run through tips to your now probably melted brain. First, we discuss what you're doing during the looting phase. Immediately, pull out your gadget, put on direct, and activate it as soon as you leave the safe area. Trust me, you're going to thank me later. Start looting normally as you would normally will, and melee fight scavs since they're not really hard to deal with, and the Hive will actually help you with this one because they're going to be locked on as well. So all you really have to do is do a shove, maybe like 1 hit or 2, and they're dead because of Hive. Now when it comes to the gun scavs, this is a little bit more tricky. Be at a somewhat distance that is enough that your bugs will actually lock onto that target. And all you gotta do is just chill and try to edge back or forth or whatever you need to do, so that way it still stays locked on. Because it's still going to do damage over time or if they start moving. And another cool thing is if your bugs go poof, guess what? Your bugs stay on the field the entire time your cooldown went off. So you can just immediately just bring your armor back up again and activate it again. Immediately. It's probably one of the best like pseudo cons really that there is. It's not, I mean it's a con, but it's not like a con like, you know what I mean. Now, this goes for all the other Doctrine modes. But when the storm comes, just run back, or even before the storm comes, just run back and share the rations with your team if they need it. Because you technically are the one who gets a lot of rations, as your team doesn't have to fight the gun scavs. You can fight the gun scavs, and everyone can not take damage from them at all. Of course, when it comes to the sniper one, just be more careful. Now, during the wave night, the first few nights can either be a direct or divide. Since not many scavs are going to come out and kill your entire team, usually. But probably around night 5+, you're going to just want to change your disperse, maybe divide on certain situations, and at a good location where they will all funnel in. I personally recommend right out the door, next to the containers, so that way they all funnel in towards you and they all are taking damage, and you can also apply melee damage, or your team can apply melee damage or whatever they need to do. In terms of weapons you may want to use, I personally love doing Executioner and Decimator with Hivemind, since while they're puking out their guts, and if they're all crowded up, Decimator will just blast through them. Executioner gives you 5+ health per kill, which is, again, nice with the Hivemind. But when it gets probably around 5 to 6+, especially the Scavor, your director comes from more backline melee to more backline using guns. Since you'll probably just get mauled if you even try to melee the Scavor assault. Just don't forget to use disperse and divide or whatever before the wave starts pouring in, and as soon as your cooldown resets, and just hope your team isn't going to give you morale. That should be about it. Hopefully with this information, you'll be more proficient with Hivemind, that your team will appreciate you, and overall you'll have a way better time with the perk. Other than that, I'll see you on the field, Agent.